Hello, and welcome to Storytime with Uncle Gravy, part 1 on YouTube. All very exciting. Thanks for coming along, thanks for tuning in and for clicking on the link, and welcome along. For the last couple of weeks I've been sharing Storytime with Uncle Gravy on my Facebook timeline. I've been reading classic children's books. We started with the BFG by Roald Dahl, and then we moved on to The Tales of Olga de Polga by Michael Bond, both very firm favourites in my household. But because I didn't write them, I can't do them on YouTube. It was just a bit of fun each day to give people a 10 or 15 minute break from whatever this new normal is. So I came to the end of Olga de Polga yesterday, which means that today I need to start a new book. And I thought to myself, what better place to start than with the book you've written yourself? Simple idea, eh? There are no agents out there at the moment. No publishers busy beavering away. So I thought to myself, I'll read a little bit every now and then, every day. If you leave comments or thoughts or ideas that pop into your head when you hear the story, I'd love to hear from you. So please do comment and keep following. So this is the Rustles. I spent today in the garden, and the Rustles also live at the bottom of a garden, at the dark end of the garden, the part of the garden that we don't often explore or even notice things in. And that's where we begin. The cat was sitting in the corner of Hollie's garden, just sitting there, head held low and completely ice still. The very end of its tail was flickering slightly, but it was now frozen and staring really, really hard at something, near to where the fence and the tangly bush bumped into each other. You may think it was just being weird, because cats are a bit weird, a lot of the time. But it wasn't being weird. It knew. It was staring, not because it had heard a rustle in the grass, but because it had just seen a rustle in the grass. It was a bright and sunny morning. As young seagulls complained to their parents by singing and crying on the rooftops, the last of the robins finished their splashing in the old bird bath at the bottom of the garden. And in the dark space, under the old trampoline, Ash was carrying something and talking to the others with an excited voice. "I've got a seed! I've got a seed! The starling dropped it as it flew. Let's plant it now and watch it grow. Some food for us and something new." Bernie looked at a smiling Chris, then back at Ash, and could guess what was about to happen. "Actually," said Chris, with a proud and bossy voice, "a seed doesn't grow. It germinates and becomes a seedling, and is the seedling which grows." There was a long pause after this important bit of science had been explained. Chris hoped it was because Ash was very impressed with the knowledge that had just been shared. The truth? A drop of water, which had got onto the seed when it landed on the wet and dewy grass, had just trickled down onto Ash's leg and was making it hard not to wriggle and giggle. "I'll help you, Ash," chuckled Bernie, seeing the wet patch developing, trying not to laugh too hard. Between them, they heaved, stumbled, and carried the large striped seed over to a sunny place, just next to the fence. Ash went to grab their shovel, a tiny piece of old sycamore spinner, and they scraped away some of the soil, then put the seed down into the dip before covering it again and scratching the fence so they would all know where to look for the new plant. Chris watched on, pleased with the fact that they had chosen somewhere sunny to plant the seed. The recent science lesson Chris had given about something called photosilliness had obviously been remembered well, so this seed would give them a good chance of something crunchy to eat in just a few moons' time. After moving around so much and so far that morning, the Rustles needed to return to their shelters as soon as they could and wait for any risk of being investigated by purring fluffy things to disappear. Their old snail shells were the perfect place to be. They were warm and dry at night and offered protection from lots of tiny scuttlers and squeaky things too. Most useful of all, though, there were always lots of big, old snail shells in the garden. They were common and dotted about everywhere, so the giants took absolutely no notice if they saw one lying around. The magic that lies all around us is, sometimes, the magic we all miss. The Rustles had lived happily at the bottom of the garden for as long as they could remember. They had done this by being very careful not to be spotted by anything that was bigger than them, could eat them, stand on them, or alert the attention of the giants. Of course, if you're small enough to live in or shelter inside a snail shell, most creatures can easily fit this description. So the Rustles had worked out from the start that the night time was good for attempting bigger tasks. They could work in the daytime too, but only very carefully. They were friendly and helpful in each of their ways. They accepted that they shared their world with all other creatures and didn't really fear anyone. Even the giants, which you would probably call humans or people, didn't really worry them too much. Compared to a Rustle, they were so enormous and heavy and thumpy and loud that they would always have plenty of warning if one was coming close to where they were. Ash would sometimes think about the giants and wonder if they were just amazingly and magically huge, or if it was just the Rustles that were curiously and mysteriously small. There wasn't much sleep lost on this subject though, because Rustles generally took lots of little naps instead of switching off for a long time. They napped when they felt tired or had been busy. They ate when they were hungry. They drank when they got thirsty, and talked if they had something to say. Ash was the one who did most of the talking, as the words always just seemed to arrive in a special order that made talking more fun and easier to remember things. I walk a bit, I talk a bit, it helps me get along. I've lots of words, so I make them fit, so they don't come out wrong. Sometimes Ash would sing this to a flappy flyer, a robin or a wren, who seemed to find the tiny singing creature in front of them fascinating and confusing. The birds would sing back too, though, so Ash felt that although they didn't understand each other's language, they understood each other just enough to be friends. The chance to make friends was something that Chris had been thinking about recently, and was planning to talk to the others about. Something big and busy was happening on the other side of the fence, and though they couldn't see what it was, they all got the feeling something important was just about to happen on their side of the fence too. Recently, a few of the giants had been using their large voices, talking to each other outside, near the Rustles' dark and damp corner of the garden. Chris had been woken from a daytime nap recently by a younger giant's voice, which was saying words like environment, conservation, and school project. Some of these words were new to Chris, but the challenge of working out what new things meant always offered up a chance to help, educate, and entertain the others, so any worries would be stored away, until more details could be confirmed. Bernie, on the other hand, felt excited and curious, and liked thinking about things that weren't yet understood. This was because Bernie often had clear and vivid dreams, which contained voices that sounded just like theirs, and would often think up stories about other Rustles and their adventures. This, of course, was pure fantasy, but imagining things was a good thing to do, on a rainy and windy day especially. Bernie had only ever known Ash and Chris, and was very happy with that situation, but also couldn't help wondering what was out there, beyond their garden world. They shared and experienced things together, and Chris would often tell them very interesting things about the scientific world, which were good to hear, but Bernie didn't actually know what the scientific world meant. Imagination was one of the things that Bernie was best at, and during their nighttime work and adventures, it was impossible to look at the moon and the twinkle dots in the sky and not then wonder if there were other giants or even Rustles up there, somewhere. And they didn't know it yet, but as Ash, Bernie and Chris each wriggled under their own snail shell and started to doze off, it wasn't going to be that long before their garden world was going to be changed forever, and amazing adventures would hurtle towards them from a land far closer than the stars. day. If you've enjoyed that first little chapter, please do let me know. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the characters, who they might be, what they might be up to, anything. Any thoughts. And I will see you again very, very soon. Thanks for watching.